Lithuania, politician, diplomat, former member of the Parliament of Lithuania, as well as the member of the European Parliament. And in my view, one of the brightest diplomats and politicians in the modern diplomatic world, Mr. Gabrielius Landsbergis. Mr. Landsbergis, thank you very much for your time and for finding time in your very, very busy schedule.
Thank you for having me.
Today we are going to discuss, of course, the hottest issues, ongoing war of Russia's war in Ukraine and the escalation between Russia and NATO. So today there was a very important meeting in Brussels, and Ramstein format meeting of the defense ministers. So we have heard the good news that the prioritized Ukraine requirement list, Pearl, is getting the force, and the more than half of the NATO member countries are ready through this mechanism to buy the U.S. military equipment necessary for Ukraine. Among them is Lithuania. I saw the news, the commitment by Lithuanian defense minister, and many others. And what was also very, very important was the U.S. War Department Secretary Hexet's statement that if war does not end, if Russia does not end war soon, United States, along with allies, will take the necessary steps to impose higher costs to the Russian Federation. Everyone everywhere is talking about the providing or buying or just providing the tomahawks to Ukraine. The president of Ukraine is heading soon to Washington, D.C., and will be meeting with President Trump. First question is, do you think that this issue is already decided and Ukraine will get tomahawks? And of course, it naturally brings us to the question that will this be the game changer and the silver bullet for Ukraine to speed up pushing Putin to the negotiations table? Will this get us closer to the end of war?
Well, thank you so much for the question. Indeed, I think it's a very important development because overall, it is the first time when the still new U.S. administration is considering applying a military leverage on Russia. So we're not talking any longer about red carpets or diplomatic solutions and appeasement measures towards Putin, but applying real pressure. Even previously there have been when the American president for the first time he announced that that there might be some pressures on Russia. He talked about sanctions and tariffs, which in my mind are not the measures that we should be considering, especially taking into account the very limited trade between United States and Russia. So the first time we're hearing about military pressure. Tomahawk is that. So just the change of narrative, I think it feeds into the recalculation, into a possible recalculation of a strategy in Moscow. So that is a good thing. Second thing is, I don't believe that it is a silver bullet. There is no, the only silver bullet is Ukrainian resilience and ability to fight on. That is what allowed the West to be in the position where we are, still not at the war, not at peace, but not at war, and allowed Ukraine to save their country. That has been the major factor. So it will continue. So the Tomahawk missile or Taurus missiles, they introduce a new strategic dilemmas for Putin. New targets, new objects can become targets. So for him, that means that he needs resources to secure them, to prepare for additional attacks. So the war for Russia becomes, or defense for him becomes ever more difficult. So that is the way how to introduce the costs. Now, I mean, the main thing that we also, I mean, okay, additionally, apart from that, apart from the in introducing new costs for Putin, we need to consider two elements additionally. One is, I think that what we're seeing is a increased escalation onto the Western countries, especially Europe and Eastern flank. I think that we will be seeing more of that. And secondly, we will be seeing ever closer Russian cooperation with China in order for him to get out of the, seemingly more difficult situation than he has been ever almost throughout his, 3.5 years of his war.
Yes. So you mentioned the Taurus, and it's not first time you were mentioning Taurus. Should we see the expected development like it was in case with Abrams and Leopards, with the weapons provided first by the United States and then by Germany? Will it be decisive for the German side, for the German government to provide Taurus to Ukraine?
Well, it could be. It worked in the past. The situation with Leopards was really comic. When the German ability to provide tanks that could be usable in Ukraine is very large. I mean, just take into consideration how many Leopard 1 tanks have been provided. We're talking hundreds. Leopard 2 tanks, maybe in less numbers, but they were not agreeing to do that without the US also sending some tanks.
Mhm.
So President Biden then decided to send 31 Abrams tank, and not to do that immediately, but kind of postpone it into the future. But the announcement itself made a change for Germans so that they would send the tanks as well. So that is if it works, it works. If now, and we are hearing these allusions where President Trump and his administration is saying that if Europeans would do the same thing, that would force US to do the same thing. So I think that they are using this connection that has worked in the past.
Mhm.
The only downside in this is that we will be forced to think about how much time did we lose, right? And you're right that we talked about Taurus for 3 years,
Yes, yes, absolutely.
and yeah, and German government usually would say that, well, we need so much time to prepare this, logistics, training. Well, we could have trained Ukrainians during those 3 years.
Yes. And it is really unfortunate that the Germans' role in providing the assistance, military assistance, is really overshadowed by this kind of discussions and non-agreements. Because just even today, Minister Pistorius of Defense of Germany has announced another huge package of 2 billion euros providing to Ukraine, the Irish-T systems and Patriot systems and other weaponry. So Germany is really doing a lot. It's number two in providing the military assistance, but it is stuck into this kind of discussions. And then there is the perception that Germany is not helping the Ukrainian people to fight. So now, Foreign Minister Sikorsky, who has presented today at the British Parliament the Shahed 136, the Russian drone. So he made a statement that Ukrainians are preparing for 3 years for fighting with the Russians. And it is quite a prudent calculation by the Ukrainians, and we should be prepared for. He meant Europeans, of course. That we should be prepared for helping them and make it sure for Putin that we will continue helping Ukraine for next 3 years. Is it the time frame which is realistic at the moment?
Yes, I think so. At the core of that calculation is, I think that we need to be reminded. Well, the question is whether Putin is interested in any sort of a negotiated peace.
Mhm.
I mean, negotiated settlement, right? And I don't think that he is. Because imagine he is a person who doesn't trust the agreements, because he's the first one to break them.
Yeah,
So
right.
he will, so he if there's an agreement signed, in half a year, in 3 months, and could all have already happened, right? And President Trump was pushing for that, to have a ceasefire, and Putin was very reluctant to accept that. And the reason is that he will not trust any ceasefire agreement. And if he doesn't trust the ceasefire agreement, then for him, it might even be worse than fighting. Because he has to maintain enormous army that would be guarding the front line. Because he doesn't trust Ukrainians that they would, not counterattack and will not advance, even with a ceasefire. And without control of Kiev, he cannot expect any change in Ukrainian policy. So for him, the main objective is that he wants to subjugate Ukraine. That he has to achieve that. This is his goal. So therefore, if we accept that this thinking is the right one, that means that any interim agreement that would cease the war will not work for Putin. And now we see that without either technological breakthrough, in super increased Chinese help, or full-scale mobilization in Russia, he cannot achieve a fundamental victory in Ukraine. That means that we have to prepare for a much longer war. And clearly, what I said at the beginning, that he will seek horizontal ways how to strengthen his position. And one of them could be increased pressure on Europe, expecting that Europe is not ready.
Yeah, regarding increasing the pressure on Europe, you don't agree that Russia, by sending in the drones and the fighter jets, is just testing the ground. You believe that I saw in your interviews, you believe that it is escalating to get into the real war, real escalation with the NATO member countries.
Yes, because I mean, he sees that, he sees two things. One is that there is no formal alliance between Ukraine and the West. So that there is no serious obligation to continue helping Ukraine.
Mhm.
And we've seen throughout the last half a year that the material assistance to Ukraine has sharply went down. So that means that the Western countries are not supporting Ukraine as much as they did in the past. Putin might expect that if the pressures on Europe increase and they will start caring about their own defenses more, they will stop supporting Ukraine in that regard. So that's number one. The second thing is seeing that there are fractures within the alliance itself. United States announcing that Europe has to, take care about its own defense. Southern countries not contributing to, not even to 2% pledge, but, not even talking about 3.5% pledge. Countries under pressure by radical movements and radical parties, France and even United Kingdom, Germany to lesser extent, because the election is still far ahead. Then we have Czechia. So the fractures are there, and I think that Putin is kind of that he can read them. So pressures onto NATO might prove, if he's successful, might prove that NATO is no longer effective or as effective as is being declared. So it might serve his strategic goal that first of all you separate Ukraine and the West. That's number one, and then you start, you drive the wedges even deeper in the West.
Yeah. Actually, should we expect that Russia would go with a full scale war, just God forbid, but with the Baltic countries or Poland or any other Eastern European country, and that really testing the Article 5. There are a lot of speculations that Article 5 is not going to work if Russia attacks any of the Eastern European countries immediately.
I think that what we will see is an increased level of these shadow activities, where Putin is operating and trying not to trigger Article 5, or at least sow doubts whether that's necessary. And I think that we're giving him quite good reason to continue that, especially, where, for example, the Secretary General, Mark Rutte, is saying that, well, if Russian operations, air operations in Europe continue, I mean, we don't see any threat in this because we're just so powerful. So, for Putin, he reads it that, okay, so that is an invitation. You're not going to take down the jets. You don't have ability to take down the drones. So I will just continue then. And we might find ourselves with this attitude and with this mentality of, that we are prepared enough that, this escalation will continue until one day the escalation could be such, which would actually mean that we are already in the Article 5 situation, but just, have slept through most of it because it didn't happen over day. It didn't happen in a conventional way, with gathering full forces in Belarus and preparing to attack a Baltic state. But it happened with something that is very, below the radar. And the escalation is such where, but Putin would say, well, now the only logical thing for me to do is a real military intervention because my interests, are somehow harmed. But he still would have NATO in a not prepared state. So my argument has always been that we have to start drawing a line for the shadow activities. We have to
Should
admit that this is already, his intentions are military. Operation is he's operating in the military warlike scenarios, and that requires a NATO's response. They do not necessarily need to be, synchronous, but it can be something under the radar as well.
Should the NATO member state shoot down the Russian fighter jet in case of violation of the NATO member states' airspace?
I
In
think
your
so. Yes, I support this notion.
Mhm.
My belief is that if we are defending an airspace, that means that, so the same logic should apply if 10 Russian troops cross NATO border, but we don't believe that they are armed or whether they have bullets, they are free to cross. It doesn't work like that, right? So you apprehend them
Absolutely.
if and kind of it is a violation, and there is a cost for the violation. So what costs are for Putin for his violations? If we are too afraid to shoot down, so turn off electricity in the base where those jets are flying from. We have cyber weapons, you know,
Mhm.
and other things. I mean, I don't want to go into the to suggestions. I mean, there are better
Yes.
planets than I am, but I mean, we have means, and show them that it's not going to be tolerated.
Russian propagandists, politicians are reacting very aggressively to the news of the transferring the tomahawks. They
Mhm.
are even Lukashenko is saying that if United States is giving Ukraine the tomahawks, there will be the nuclear war and World War III. So. Is it the just propaganda and bluffing, or should the world expect that level of escalation, which would be converted into the full-scale military confrontation?
Well, the World War III was promised, from the first days of the full-scale invasion. I think that Putin's announcement, at the beginning of the war was like, well, if the West is going to help Ukraine, you will see something that the world has not seen, since the Second World War, basically. So that, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I mean that was a clear indication that that there's a potential nuclear holocaust if you continue helping Ukraine. And then there were things, exactly the same thing said about the F-16s, about the tanks, about so many other things. So I believe that the maxim is true, which says that if they go with bayonet, and if what they see is what they feel is soft, they will continue pushing. If they meet steel, they will stop and withdraw. That is
Mhm.
what I believe that Putin needs to know. And especially now, I think that this moment is even more crucial because Ukrainians have been successful with their long-range attacks.
Mhm.
They put the price on Putin's table for the war. For the first time, Russian people, his establishment, they are paying the price. And what they want to do, they want now to kind of to divide the Western assistance. They want to put pressure on the West, and they will do that clearly because they will believe that this might help them expand the war. Maybe put pressure on Moldova, maybe on I don't know, in Georgia. But I mean, Georgia is, well, we know where Georgia is. So all these things are logical because he feels that he's cornered. So we cannot give him a way out through Europe or through other countries. That he
Yes.
has to face the reality.
President Trump also is emphasizing that Russia is having the difficulties and its economy is collapsing. So the people are standing in the long lines for gasoline, and it could collapse anytime from now. So what else should be done to force Putin to sit at the negotiations table? I see the news about the G7 planning some new actions. A few hours ago, UK has sanctioned Lukoil and Rosneft and other individuals and the shadow fleet. What else should be done along with providing the military assistance, in your view?
So yeah, so I mean, the keys to Russian economy are in Kiev, interestingly enough, with their long-range attacks, and the more successful they are, the more targets that they can hit. There was the worse the Russian economy gets. And now we're seeing oil refineries, right, or oil connectors, for oil distribution. But imagine, I mean, if Ukrainian production would be ramped up 5 times, 10 times of long-range drones, and their operations are successful. Basically, any Russian factory, that helps their economy could become a target. Aluminium, nickel, name it. I mean, Russians have all sorts of minerals and things that are being produced,
Yes,
and every single of them could become a target. I mean, and with enough equipment, Ukrainians can really, continue this, hurting Russian economy. But there's another factor that the second key to Russian economy is in Beijing. And again, I've mentioned um, that even now, 80% of Russian military output, either repurposing of the old weapons or building new ones, is being done with Chinese equipment. That is enormous. That means that China is fully invested in Russia's war effort. Um, if the economy becomes even more strained, Putin will start selling parts of his country. Well, metaphorically, but I mean even practically. Inviting more Chinese investment. And China's pockets are incredibly deep. They can, continue pulling out Russia from the hole that Putin dug itself in. Of course, if there's something that is not free, the breakfast is definitely not free in Beijing. And
uh,
so that is clear. So so Putin will be selling parts of his country. Um, that could become in the future very interesting thing when China will ask parts of eastern Siberia, Manchuria, as a reparation for the debts that are accrued during the war. But when it comes to the West, that means that without the pressure on China, real pressure on China, well, I still believe that it might be a very long time that we would see Russia's economy collapsing. In theory, it could have already have collapsed, but it hadn't. Why? Because of the friends like Xi Jinping and other dictators that are helping Russia.
Does the West have the enough leverages to pressure China? It doesn't look like.
We do. Look, we do. The question is that, the problem is that they have leverage against us.
Yes, they do have. The Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, is permanently applying to the scenario when China is interested in Russia attacking European country to distract the attention of the European and Western allies from its possible military activities against Taiwan. So
Yeah.
he is convinced, and he is trying to convince the society that it is a very realistic scenario. The Chinese themselves are also almost publicly are saying that it's in their interest to have prolonging the war between Russia and Ukraine, not stopping the war in Ukraine. Do you also think that China could have in its mind in the nearest couple of years to go militarily against Taiwan?
Well, I think this is one of the points that Secretary General is making that I fully agree with. I mentioned the numbers, right? So China is already incredibly invested in the war. So not only they are not, for peace or, any sort of negotiations or diplomacy, they are for protracted conflict. They are interested in the conflict continuing. And they know that, in this conflict, Russia is not faring very well. So they are feeding, slowly and surely they're feeding Russia, clearly having a goal, of their own. So one of the goals I mentioned, that could be that there will be a price that Russia will have to pay to China one day. That is also possible. But then the other thing is absolutely right, is that the West is distracted. That European countries now cannot be interested in Indo-Pacific as much as they had before the war against Ukraine.
Mhm.
Where you would see, just remember, the Dutch and German ships sailing around Taiwan. Now those ships are needed in Baltic Sea, they are needed in North Atlantic, and clearly they are, nowhere close to Taiwan. So it's already a victory for
Right.
China, yes. And so I think that they will keep this conflict ongoing as long as it takes for them to figure out what they or when they are ready to make a move in Taiwan against Taiwan. And I think that could be sooner than we predict or than we imagine.
Yes. And do you think that is Europe really preparing, getting ready for the war? Is it in a better shape than it was months ago, at least?
Well, parts of Europe, yes. I'm seeing that, in Germany, things are changing, really. I mean, and I'm grateful that you've mentioned that, Germany now is, probably the main provider of equipment to Ukraine. Really. And I mean, in some cases, they are being criticized, and I join in, because they are not sending the equipment that we believe that could be sent to Ukraine, but they are making steps. The $500 billion defense investment fund that has been created with the new government by the new government is 3 times as large as Europe has created, its defense fund. So Europe, 27 countries have created something that is, really minuscule in comparison to what, single country is doing. So, you take Nordic countries, you take Poland. I see a lot of real change happening on the ground. Industries being changed, real money is being invested. Ukraine is helped, with the real equipment. Um, so that is changing. What it means, and why I'm stressing that parts of Europe, because it tells, or at least it forces me to ask a question. So what does it mean for united Europe? Can united Europe make a decision? Or create a united front, which I'm not sure. And I'm a bit worried that now we might be at the time where the fractures might start a creation of a subdivisions of alliances, something like a northern European alliance for defense, that would kind of figure out how do we defend the region of the Baltic Sea, rather than go through the very difficult path of trying to convince Spain that it's also in their interest so that Europe is safe. So yeah, some in Europe are wakening up.
Mhm. And of course, I can't miss this opportunity not to talk about Moldova, Georgia, and our part of the world. Moldova made an really tremendous efforts and success. It was a success. The elections in Moldova, Russia failed with all its malign operations in Moldova, but. Does it mean that Russia has given up the idea of destabilizing Moldova first? And second, about Georgia, we know the difficulties with democracy and with its European integration of the country, with the GD and the rulership of this country. But the end of war in Ukraine, the victory or the outcome of the war in Ukraine, would it affect the internal politics and the situation in Georgia? How do you think so?
Surely. I mean, even dictator Lukashenko understand that his future is very much dependent on the outcome of Russia's war against Ukraine. The security guarantees that he has. If Putin is around, then he's safe. If Putin is in trouble, nobody will save him. And that works for Moldova, definitely. Now though Georgia is an interesting position where they are trying to to create a regime, I would say, that would be reminiscent more of regimes that govern Central Asia.
Hmm.
So it is interesting that they basically kind of they want to maintain ties as the Central Asian countries are maintaining ties with Russia. That it has nothing to do with democracy. But the problem is Georgian people, you see.
For
For
whom?
for them, if not for Georgian people, Georgia would have already become a Central Asian republic.
Mhm.
But through the bravery and the spirit, the freedom, freedom of Georgian, the spirit of Georgian people, they were not allowed to do that. And this is what frustrates them. But this is why Georgia is still free.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And very last question about Donald Trump is very positively emotionalized because of the ceasefire in Gaza.
Mhm.
And he reached this agreement. He should be praised for this agreement. Now, is this a good stimulus for him to end the war in Ukraine? People are really counting that. He now could be involved, to push and pressure Russia to get this ceasefire, at least ceasefire, or the end of the war in Ukraine.
Yes, well, I mean that's definitely he deserves a praise on, on release of hostages and at least on the first phase of implementation of his plan. He is changing the situation in Middle East, whether that's permanent, it still remains to be seen, right? We're still at the first steps. Now, Russia's war against Ukraine is a bit different conflict, right? So we're dealing with with a permanent Security Council member. We're dealing with a nuclear power, which has a very close connection to China, and so the situation is really, really difficult. It very much depends. I believe that it very much depends on the attitude that the President Trump will develop towards China. Now he's inclined to have a deal with China. And in my sense is that this allows China a bit more leverage, or leeway to navigate, right? So they feel that they are a bit more secure because they are negotiating this trade deal that could be go beyond just the trade. If the United States would decide to take a tougher stance vis-a-vis China, it is possible that then the situation would change also for Russia, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, we'll see. At the end of this month, there will be the meeting of President Trump with his counterpart, Chinese counterpart. We'll see how it goes. We see the ups and downs in the relationship and in the statements between China and the United States. But of course, very much, I absolutely agree with you. Very much depends on how U.S.-Chinese relationship will develop in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your very valuable remarks and the position. And thank you. And hopefully we'll meet somewhere either in Georgia or in Europe. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for a very interesting conversation.